that is financial market. Here in this chapter, I'm going to explain you more about the Sebi advisory committees. The primary market advisory committee will give all the rules and regulations which should be formed. Financial assets, you can actually make it into a liquidity, that is to cash. It can be easily converted into cash in financial market. Capital market may be divided into two, that is primary market and secondary market. Primary market and hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I'm Abhilash Chandra from the Department of Business Studies in Vidhyaashram PU College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to the last session of the 10th chapter, that is financial market. Here in this chapter, I'm going to explain you more about the Sebi advisory committees. Now, Securities and Exchange Board of India has two advisory committees. One is the primary market advisory committee and the secondary market advisory committee. So here what happens is, when we talk about Sebi, right? Sebi has two of the advisory. One is primary market advisory committee and secondary market advisory committee. Now these two committees, what exactly they do? When you understand primary markets are the market which go with fresh shares which the company will offer. Now secondary market is all about the stock exchange. Now the securities are the equity shares. Here what usually happens is, whether the company is performing the task, whichever they have their own rules and regulations, but they are supposed to check what the Sebi have given the norms. So the norms should be actually taken care. And the primary market advisory committee will give all the rules and regulations which should be formed or which should be practiced in the primary market. And the secondary market advisory committee, which is actually, they are the keen people who will check what exactly the stock market is dealing with, that is the stock market, and how are the brokers, and whether there is any malpractice or there is any fraudulent act which is happening. Now please understand the scams which I wanted to tell you, that is Satyam. There was a company called Satyam and it was started by a person called Ramlingam, and they got to know, that is Sebi and the other institutions, they got to know that there is a malpractice of being done in these company. So they went with a proper scrutiny of two companies, that is, one is Satyam and another was Maitas. Please understand Satyam and Maitas here. The word here, Satyam, and the opposite of it, say Maitas, right? Here see M, you have M, A Y Y T T A S and A S. So Satyam and Maitas, if you just change it, there was a malpractice being followed, and the CEO, the bureaucrats, the officials, they're all involved in the scam. Sebi was very keen and they figure out what exactly it is through these committees. That is one of the primary market committee as well as the secondary market advisory committee. And then they made an impact in the entire stock market as well as the other companies, saying that whoever are going with any securities, they are supposed to follow these rules and regulations, and the rules and regulations became very mandatory to follow. So the first one here is the Sebi also formed two advisory committee. They are the primary and secondary market to advise Sebi on matters relating to regulation of intermediaries. When I say intermediaries, means the brokers, for ensuring investors protection. See, Satyam and Maitas, what happened was, the investors were in a loss in the primary market. Second is to advise Sebi on issues related to development of primary market in India. In India, we really need to have a proper primary market. The objectives of two committees, that is to advise SEBI on disclosure requirement for companies. If there is any disclosure requirement, that should be actually been informed to the SEBI. To advise for changes in legal framework. See, after Satyam, what happened was the legal framework also changed. They went with more scrutinities to introduce simple and transparency in the primary market. That is simplification and transparency in primary market. So the main idea of is what? To improve the primary market. To advise the board in matters relating to the development and regulation of the secondary market in the country. So their main aim is what? To make sure that the primary market in India should be very good as well as the secondary market. If we compare USA stock exchange like Nasdaq or New York Stock Exchange, and if you compare China or the Hong Kong or Shanghai or any kind of even UK stock exchange, they are really doing good. The reason being their regulation body. The same way here we have a regulatory body, that is SEBI. Even SEBI wants to prove that we are also not very far from these stock exchange. We have the beautiful two stock exchange like NSE and BSE, where SEBI is actually they have a very keen interest on how the companies and other people are doing it, and whether the investors are getting anywhere cheated, or is there any malpractice done by the company. So they are the body which actually cares for the public, because it is actually a statutory body which is given by the Parliament in a special act, that is the SEBI Regulation Act in 1992. So here we have the summary of the entire chapter. The summary of the entire chapter is financial market is a market for creation and exchange of financial assets. When I say financial assets, it's like fixed assets as well as the current asset. It helps in mobilization and channelizing the savings into most productive use. So what usually happens is, there is a house, say we actually go with saving, but the savings should be mobilized. It should be mobilized. Only then you can actually have so many building kind of a thing. So here, this is what it is. Financial market also helps in price discovery and provide liquidity to financial assets. So what happens is, financial market is a place where if you have financial assets, you can actually make it into a liquidity, that is to cash. It can be easily converted into cash in financial market. Next is money market. We went with what exactly a money market is. Money market is a market for short-term fund. So money market is for a short-term fund. It deals in monetary assets. It deals with monetary asset whose period of maturity is less than 1 year. So money market here is all about money market is all about what? That is short term. So what happens is, 1 year is what the duration is. Money market. The instrument of money market includes, now these are the short term funding things, that is tertiary bills, commercial papers. I have told you about all these things. Call money, REPOs, then certificate of deposits, commercial bills, participation certificates, and money market, that is with the mutual fund. So all these things are the money market example, that is short-term funds within 1 year is what it is. When you compare this commercial paper from 90 days to 1 year, so almost all the things which is the money market instruments which we call, it is always what? Less than 1 year is what the validity is. Next is capital market. Now capital market is a big market, is a place where long-term funds are mobilized by the corporate, undertaking and government. So capital market may be divided into two, that is primary market and secondary market. Primary market and secondary market. Primary market deals with new securities. I told you about the primary market, that is the fresh shares which were not previously traded to the public. Secondary market is a place where existing securities are bought and sold, that is your stock exchange. Now primary market, when I tell you, that is the company company is issuing the shares for the first time. For the first time, and that is called the primary market. Secondary market is whichever is being issued, the shares which are being issued. Now those shares will be in the stock market, and that is brought and sold in the market. So you have the buying and the selling will happen. So it depends on whether the demand is there or supply is there. That is what the capital market is all about. Next, we have stock exchange. We know what exactly the stock exchange is. We spoke about NSE and BSE, that is Bombay Stock Exchange. Now, what really happens here is stock exchange are the organizations which provide a platform for buying and selling of existing securities. When I say existing security, whether it is a primary or it's a secondary, it is a secondary market. Stock exchange provide continuous market for securities, helps in price discovery, widening share ownership, and provide scope of speculation. See, healthy speculation is good. Healthy speculation is actually very good, and the competitiveness and performance professionalism will also be involved in these kind of things. So these are the things which you people should know, students. Financial market is very, very important. You will get to know the stock market, what is bull, what is bear, what is speculation, what is lame duck, everything we have explained to you. Thank you so much. If you have any doubt, you can call us. We are always there to help you. I'll see you when I see you.